Hi, I'm Michael Nolan, a Senior Acquisitions Editor for New Writers, and we're coming to you from the 2008 South by Southwest Interactive Festival and Conference here in Austin, Texas. And I am speaking with Kevin Lawver, who is one of the co-authors of our book, Adapting to Web Standards, CSS and Ajax for Big Sites. Now, Kevin, of course, is very familiar with big sites because he works at AOL. But before we get to that, tell me about the International Day of Awesomeness.
It's a holiday that I invented that started as a joke at work, and it slowly built into, I threw together a website for it, sent it to some friends, and everybody thought it was a really funny idea. But I actually started taking it seriously. My kid came up with the tagline that says,
Which is?
Nobody's perfect, but everyone can be awesome. And
That's a great tagline.
it became this sort of, the idea is to do something that you wouldn't normally do.
And how did you do that? Observe the International Day of Awesomeness.
I dyed my hair bright blue, which is something I've always wanted to do. I had friends in high school that had bright blue hair, and I was always very jealous, and but never had the guts to actually do it myself. So this morning in my hotel room, I ruined 2 hotel towels.
Whoa, I bet they will be unhappy when they come in and pick up those towels.
I'll pay for it.
Well, it looks outstanding.
Thank you.
It's awesome, in a word.
I would hope so. I'd be a failure if it didn't.
Yes. So, your presentation, you say you've been coming to South by Southwest for several years. How long?
This is my 5th.
Your 5th year at South by. And what have you seen change at South by in those 5 years?
It's so much bigger now.
Yeah.
That we have. They just opened the 3rd floor for panels last year, and this year there are 12 panels going on at the same time, and you have to give up all hope of meeting everybody.
Yeah.
When I was here in 2004, my first one,
it's still possible.
I met, a good 150, 200 people, and I felt like I had, met pretty much everyone there that was open to being met, I think.
Yeah.
And this time, there's just no way.
There is no way. One of my authors compared it to drinking from a fire hose. And I thought that was a good metaphor for what South by Southwest has become. But still, it's fabulous. It's like the best conference in the spring, at least.
Easily.
For web designers and developers. And I just always come away with new insights and excitement.
It's a really good mix. Like, it's not a super technical conference, and it's not it's not in a cubbyhole. You've got everybody together. So you've got designers and developers and entrepreneurs and writers and just lots of creative folks. So for me, the overlap is what's interesting.
Have you attended any good parties?
I don't do the
You don't do the parties?
Because I just don't handle being crushed by, you know. I'm good with nerds because I am one, but in a bunch, you can't hear anyone talk. So we decided that there are 2 types of people in the world. There are bar people and there are dinner party people. And
You're
much more a dinner party person.
So you probably have had some nice dinners with folks here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you talk about in this book big sites, that's what you're presenting about here at South by this year. Tell us a bit about your presentation.
I did a panel with Thomas Vanderwall, Cindy Lee, Jason Garber, and Leslie Jensen Inman about working for big companies and then making the transition to maybe startup life or doing your own thing or educational stuff. And we talk a lot about coping mechanisms and the pros and cons.
What are some?
I've only ever worked for AOL. It's been my entire professional life.
And that's a big company.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Fluctuates a bit, but it's a very large company. I think the biggest one is to know what your strata is and know what your role is, and you can kick all kinds of butt within that role and within that strata and make a big difference. But above that, or maybe below it, or to the sides of it, you kind of just have to let that stuff be, and you don't have much control, and there's all kinds of stuff that happens above you that you can object to, and make sure that your objection is noted, but they're going to go make their decisions without you.
They are,
and there's nothing you can do. You can either, so you have two choices. You either get over it and move on, or you leave. And I've done a pretty good job over 13 years of getting over a lot of different
moving
stuff.
on. Yeah.
You just sort of say, okay, I can't affect that anymore.
And who on your panel represented the freelancer or the small company?
Both. Jason Garber now works for a startup. He worked with me at AOL for a while. He works for a startup of 10 people. Thomas Vanderwall works for himself. He is a single person company. Cindy Lee does freelancing and works in a small design firm. And Leslie Jensen Inman is a professor at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So they've all had broad experience in different size organizations. So Cindy's done the startup thing and AOL and.
So what are the particular challenges for a web designer or developer in a large organization?
If you work at, mass market internet scale, building things, it's a totally different exercise. You have to go out of the door being able to handle millions of requests a day.
Yeah.
And you can't really cut corners. Like, if you're a startup, you can sort of just throw something out. You slap it together, throw it out there, and then see what happens, and then worry about the scale when you get there. If you got that network effect of, an AIM or an AOL or Yahoo or Google, you can't do that. You can't just say, okay, let's push it out and see what happens, because it'll melt without getting even, half the traffic that it possibly could.
Understandable.
So you have to think a lot more about infrastructure, and even on the front end side, you have to think a lot more about caching and geo-distribution of content, and like edge caching of assets and that kind of stuff. That there aren't books on it, and so when Christopher brought up the idea of doing the book, I'm like, well, let's do, a real explanation of how this works and how something in a very large company goes from beginning to outdoor.
So it's about applying web standards for a large web presence. What have you heard people talking about? What's the buzz at South by this year that is new? Is there anything new that's caught your eye?
There's a lot more talk about OpenID this year. There seem to be a lot more business panels. Like there's one this afternoon on bootstrapping. Which we've never had a panel on, bootstrapping your own startup before. Honestly, I've been so busy doing my panel, and a product that I built was up for a web award last night, so I was a little stressed out. We won in the CSS category.
All right.
There's a site called Ficklets that, speaking of scale, it was the complete opposite. AOL let us go off as an experiment last year.
So it's an AOL site? And you won a Webby Award?
Yep, for the CSS category.
That should be a nice thing to go back to Virginia with.
Yeah.
Tell them.
Little statue.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's wonderful. It's really nice talking with you, Kevin.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.